bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is part 2 of our investigation into the Satipathhana Sutta, a discourse on developing mindfulness, which, if practiced properly, leads to nibbana. And as we learned last time, there's mindfulness is supported by other qualities. If you remember, diligence or being ardent, clear knowing, sampajanya, and putting aside covetousness and, I would say, distress, domanassa, distress concerning the world. And Venerable Analio points out that those supportive factors and mindfulness are closely related to, if not equal to, what's sometimes called the 4 of the 5 spiritual powers. You heard of the spiritual powers? These are the, somewhat similar to the factors of awakening, but they're only 5. It's a little bit easier to remember. So there's diligence is energy, clear knowing is wisdom, mindfulness is mindfulness, and putting away covetousness and distress is facilitated by concentration. So there's 4. And the 5th one, which is mentioned, is Sutta, or faith. But it's going to presume that if somebody is already practicing or interested in practicing for nibbana, they would have some degree of faith or trust in the Buddhist teachings. So anyway, just a little aside there. So these, you begin to see how mindfulness is sort of a key factor in Buddhist spiritual practice. And mindfulness and clear knowledge, those 2 factors, are also included in a kind of a sequence the Buddha gave in several discourses, which is like a kind of a spiritual progression or evolution. And it starts off with somebody hearing the Buddhist teachings, then they gain faith in those teachings, and then they decide to, it's in the Pali Canon, the Buddha's talking to monks, so he relates it to the fact that this person realizes that the household life is difficult to practice Dhamma. So they go forth to the homeless life, take up the precepts, the refined precepts of the monastic form, and then they undertake practice of what's called contentment, santuti, contentment, which is in our monastic form is based on the 4 requisites: alms food, simple robes, literally rag robes, but wouldn't use rags anymore, but a simple lodging, the root of a tree in the Buddhist time, and then medicine for sickness. So this, or you can say in general, a simple lifestyle, so that we aren't encumbered by a lot of excess activities to look after our body. So you have more time for spiritual practice, you could say. After contentment, then there is sense restraint. Or literally, you can say, another way of explaining it is guarding the doors of the senses. And this word mindfulness is very helpful too, especially you'll hear about this later when we get to the Dhammas. I talk about the 6 senses, putting a guard at the sense doors so that evil, unskillful thoughts do not impinge upon the mind. And there's some things that are not very skillful to look at. So you have to be a bit vigilant in what you observe or what you listen to. Just like being in a noisy place, it's very hard to focus on breathing, for example. So we come to a quiet place, for example. And then after sense restraint, there is mindfulness and clear knowledge practicing. This is, you can say, technically the beginning of meditation practice. You know, there's sila, samadhi, panya. So you can say there's some degree of wisdom, then there's practice of morality, then meditation. And then from mindfulness and clear knowing is a basis for the developing of concentration exercises. And then from there, insight into the Four Noble Truths, and then the cessation of the so-called the asavas. You heard of asava? What I call the outflows. These are the outflows of selfhood, like the defilements. So, of course, for most people, you know, it's the path to realization is a little bit slower than the sentences I just gave you. A little longer than 5 minutes maybe. but once you get the idea, you can kind of keep working at it. And it usually kind of is a bit of a kind of a feedback loop also. You know, when somebody practices this morality, for example, they already can have some degree of calmness of mind, which supports more concentration. And the sense restraint gives you some support for mindfulness. When your senses are more restrained, your mind's more peaceful, your mind's more clear, you can be more aware of walking and sitting and activities. So again, mindfulness is very key to the whole Buddhist path of spiritual practice. Not the only factor. Some people maybe they overdo it and say, oh, you know, mindfulness is enough. Not quite. Supported by other factors too. And most important is that, you know, the Buddha emphasized mindfulness because this is especially a basis for wisdom. You know, once you can see the facts of reality, then, you know, you can see the way things really are. People don't realize that most of the time their confusion is based upon not getting the facts right. You know, you just have a sensory impression, and very quickly you jump to conclusions, expectations, presumptions, fantasies, etc. If now you're being more mindful of what's actually going on here, sight, sound, thought, feeling, whatever, then you get a much clearer picture of what the facts are. Then maybe you can, if you have to build a story, you have to fantasize. It's based a bit more on reality, I feel like. And of course, depending upon the power of sati, of mindfulness, you know, sometimes this doesn't happen then. You can just recognize, oh, I'm fantasizing. What's the use of that? Comes to an end. So we learned last time too that mindfulness is developed over 4 different areas. We started off with the body awareness, which has 6 exercises. And then we go on to feelings, hopefully today. Then there's states of mind, and then the phenomena or dhammas. So we got a few themes anyway to work on. So. But it's important to get a good grounding, first of all, in what we're doing, way of practice. Because if mindfulness is not supported by skillful qualities, it's not going to develop very well. And it's helpful also that one gets some experience. So have you been practicing mindfulness of breathing last week? Doing your homework? Being aware of the 4 postures? Being aware of the body and its various activities? You know, mindfully talking? Mindfully eating? Anybody? I said one nod here, but
Mindfully talking.
Okay, mindfully talking. Okay, mindfully cooking. And what's also important is, you know, what is mentioned about how to practice it in terms of internally, externally, both together, and then arising factors, cessation factors, and both together. So we got that out of the way, right? Refresher, yeah. So we've done the first 3 exercises, covered them. So The next three are extra. If people are serious about the practice, they can work on them, but they require a little bit of extra effort because they require some knowledge and or some visualization. So in the development of mindfulness, it goes through various stages. Like in the breathing, first two exercises are just knowing. A long breath, breathing in a long breath, out a long breath, in a short breath, out a short breath. And then it goes on to training. Training to experience the whole body. Training to tranquilize the bodily formations, the bodily, I would say, processes. And then we go on to the next one, the 32 parts. It moves into what's translated as considering. One considers the actually 31 parts of the body, if you counted them. There's only 31 listed in the Pali Canon. And I think it's the commentary adds the brain to it, to make 32. But Venerable Analayo asked, why 31? He said, maybe because there's 31 planes of existence. This is getting really brainy, isn't it? But I think it's the commentary adds the brain too. But anyway, so it's become traditional in Theravada countries to have 32 parts. If you look in the chanting book, probably it's 32. I presume, yeah. 31 is good enough. And it also says that whatever parts there may be at the very end of it, whatever parts. So 31 is not exclusive. If you have another part, my sore right toe, if you can add that to your list. Or my sore right knee or something or other. And maybe those are, you can add it to the list because if you have especially have a source of irritation in the body, that'll attract your attention. I have trouble visualizing lungs, heart, liver, spleen, whatever. I don't know what I had to look in an anatomy book to find out even what they were, or where they were. But in the exercise, they start off with the simple ones you can see outside. And one alternative is to just use as many as you can remember. But they start off with, you can say the solid ones, say hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin. Then it goes into the internal organs, it goes into the liquids. So it's more and more refined or more subtle. And the benefit of this, first of all, the challenge is to have to remember these different parts, if it were, and then to internalize them. See, it's not enough just to visualize or imagine them in your mind, but to try to be able to see them in your own body. And they say that if you can do that, they begin to become a nimitta, a vision, an image happens. And the one of the ones which is most emphasized in Pali Canon is just skeleton. Yeah, but it's, how do you see skeleton? Well, you can open to skeleton by teeth. Teeth are part of the skeleton, right? They're a separate part of the body, of the skeleton, but anyway. If you're going to work on those, I would say that it's helpful at least to try to develop them, because sometimes people have a certain tendency to, have certain ability to visualize parts of the body. I mean, we live with this body anyway. Other times it may be a challenge to spend some time studying it, looking at an anatomy book or whatever, It's probably hard to see the real thing these days, to see a heart, to go to an autopsy or something, or unless you're a doctor or a nurse or something, you know. So this is considering these parts of the body, and the benefit is to reduce the attachment. You know, we usually think that, you know, we think of body as one kind of coherent process, you see. When you start seeing parts, you know, then where is the body actually? Is it? And it's also a side effect, I would say. It kind of equalizes human beings. You know, we look at people's faces, maybe they're different. But when it comes to internal, everybody has heart, liver, I presume. I read somewhere, anyway, I read somewhere they did some study of somebody, and they found the guy had no brain, but he was still alive. Anyway, interesting point. Maybe he was always in concentration, he had no thoughts. The danger is that, and even sometimes when they translate this particular meditation, they talk about the loathsomeness of the body. That isn't the point of it, to develop loathsomeness with the body. In fact, there was a story in one of the scriptures where the Buddha was going on retreat, and he gave this meditation of contemplating the body, body contemplation. Went on retreat, and some of the monks got so disgusted with the body, they committed suicide. So when the Buddha came out of retreat, he said, where's everybody gone? Well, Lord, they... He said, that wasn't the point of the meditation. So how about doing mindfulness of breathing instead? And some people point out, they do say that it's to develop some loathsomeness to the body, this repulsive body. See? But I would say it's just to get a balanced perception of the body. We're usually looking at the body from a beautiful point of view, right? If you look at the advertisements, do they ever have advertisements of skeletons wearing fancy clothes? No. Uses some attractive body, right? But if you develop this meditation, then you begin to see, oh, there's another side to it. You know, after the photograph's taken, you know, the makeup drops off. The person isn't quite attractive as. Even the beautiful people, you know, have blood, pus, sweat, and tears or something. Maybe they probably even have shed more blood, sweat, and tears than most of us, huh? If you're a famous person. But who sees that, huh? You just see the beautiful people. Huh? And now that's the 32 parts of the body. Yeah. And it can be helpful, I mean, to just maybe start off with maybe the first 5, you know, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin, because those are reasonably observable. If you're interested to take it further, then you can try to visualize the internal organs or whatever. Or if you have a certain, maybe constitutional weakness, you know, heart palpitations or something, maybe, can give you some extra theme of meditation. But this, at least it's worth to try to investigate this to some degree, because it is a significant meditation the Buddha mentioned. It's probably the third most useful, most used meditation in Thailand. First breathing, then metta, 32 parts of the body, then maybe the death meditation or something. And the next exercise, of course this is also internally, externally, both together, arising factors, ceasing factors. Time for a story? No, I haven't got time. It's a long one anyway, so Okay, the next one is the four elements. Again, a little bit, it can be helpful sometimes to kind of stretch your mind a little bit. See, again, we usually look at reality as, solid things, you see. But if you understand and study about these four elements, these are the four elemental qualities: earth, fire, water, air. See? So all material things are made of just four elements, including this body. And if you study about them, then you can investigate. Just like in these 32 parts, you could break them down too into the solid parts. The earth parts are solid. Sometimes it's better to translate these as the four elemental qualities, because it's not earth, not dirt. This earth element represents solidity, what is solid. Water is fluidity. Air is distension, it fills things out. And then there's heat and cold, actually. Cold is an absence of heat. So they're more like qualities of materiality. So if you can study them and know a bit about them, then you can look in the body and you see, rather than see your body, you see earth, fire, water, air. Yeah, it's like taking it apart and seeing it in a new way. Maybe a more, another one, another adaptation might be when you got a modern education, you learn about atoms and molecules. Yeah, so you can look at your body as carbon and oxygen and nitrogen. Is that a bit too brainy? You got to be a chemist, I guess, to see it that way. But you don't see my hand. You see earth. You see oxygen, nitrogen, or you see solidity, fluidity, the blood flowing. You see air. Air is air. Air also in the Indian Buddhist understanding is what makes things move too. What makes the body move. Different movement of the joints, for example, due to air. Then there's heat and cold. So it's a new way of looking at the body, and it can create some degree of detachment from the body, because again it's all elements. Just the same as we look at our body, I'm so special, but the birds and the iguanas also made of four elements. They're just a little bit different shape. But they're just four elements too. So are the trees and the rocks and the earth. It's all part of nature. And in the Buddhist conception of things, when a person, the body breaks up, it just returns to the four elements. Your precious body just becomes dirt again, and air, and how much dust of bodies are we breathing? Probably not a lot out here because, but all these, how many billions of people have died over the years that just turn to dust. They become smoke. Different way to look at it, huh? Your body is a potential smoke pile, a CO2 sink. So now, then we come to the next one, the corpse meditation. This is a little bit challenging, I would think. You don't see too many corpses these days, do you? In India, in the Buddhist time, some of the poor people were just left, their bodies were left out in the charnel ground. So it wasn't that difficult to, and even maybe you couldn't avoid it sometimes. When I was, when I was traveling through India, I was on a bicycle out in the desert in Rajasthan. And there they just, not the people, but they throw the dead animals outside the village, you see. So I knew I'm getting near a village when I saw the vultures flying around, you see. And you come towards the village and there's a charnel ground there with all the skeletons of the animals, dead animals. And even they collected them sometimes and took them off to the glue factory. I was riding on a bicycle on this road, and there's very few cars in the desert, but this truck was coming up the road, and it's only a one-lane road, so I have to get careful and make sure that I get off the road before the, because the truck doesn't get off the road. So, but it was a little bit of a mirage in the desert. I saw this truck coming up, and so finally I got off the road into the sand, and this truck came by, full of skeletons, animals, going to the glue factory, and I really had to wipe my eyes. Is this a mirage too? A whole truck full of skeletons in the middle of the desert. Am I hallucinating? Never saw it again, so maybe I was. No, it was all dried out. It's desert, so. Or another possibility is, another thing I found by mistake, well, yeah, sort of mistake, was when I was out in this remote branch monastery in Thailand. I had this skin ailment, some kind of rash or something, and usually after a few days it goes away, but this persisted. So I thought, what can I do? It's so far to go to the hospital, you'll just give me some pills and say go home anyway. So I thought, oh, I'll be clever, I'll look up Dr. Google, see? Check Dr. Google and find out what's wrong with me so I get the right medicine, you see. So I looked on the internet and I found 40 different skin diseases. And it was really a suba. It was really revolting to see these color pictures of all the different skin ailments. And after I finished them, none of them were like mine. So I thought, oh my goodness, my problem's nothing compared to these people. And then a few days later it went away. Maybe it was the power of suggestion, thinking, my body, I've got to heal my body's so precious, but seeing other people's illnesses, mine was nothing, so forget about it. So we got half an hour, so should move on to the next topic. Is that enough for now? Yeah. Oh, well, also the last one, of course, meditation, is also a kind of an opening to contemplate the passing away of the body, right? So you're supposed to compare your body. It's a bit of a visualization. You see this rotting corpse. You're still alive, but you see this rotting corpse out there, and you have to compare. Oh, this body is a potential rotting corpse, you see, and then internalize it. So it is in a way an indirect contemplation of death also. Of course, I personally prefer the more cleaner meditation on death. Less smelly and don't give much chance anyway, but for rotting corpses, but to contemplate. The Buddha mentioned also this was very important to contemplate, the possibility of passing. Every single body is going to die. How many of us, we just put it off, don't we? Think, yeah, them, not me, right? Not today, Maybe in, a long time. Not soon. But the Buddha pointed out it's helpful to contemplate this. You kind of internalize it and just reflect. Yes, this body is passing away. And ideally, every day. At least, get used to it. And at first, of course, there's a big resistance. Of course, right, yeah. I know that, I know theory of it, but if you bring it closer to your contemplation, you begin to see the body slowing down maybe, and wrinkles appearing. Before it was, I didn't have any gray hairs, but you didn't have any hair. Yes, I shaved off the gray hairs. But gradually you begin to see the running down of the body. It's winding down. So ideally, when you really can internalize that, then death comes along and no surprise. Ideally. So we come to,
Just on the four elements, one thing I wonder about is, and I think, like in the past there was a sense of confusion to me, but it's not anymore. But I think bringing it out for the benefit of others might be good. But with the four elements, obviously if somebody's got a scientific background, they might be like, of course there's more than four elements and all this.
Yeah.
But I think obviously in this case, it's to do with the experiential. It's the Buddha's talking about the ways that rupa can be known experientially. That's sort of how I've come to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of and especially with those other passages about him saying that he doesn't talk about existence or non-existence. Yeah. But yeah, I was just bringing it up as a thing because I used to get quite confused.
Yeah.
Like, how do you?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say elemental qualities, and I usually try to, elemental qualities, earth, fire, water, air. So qualify it much more. We just have to use these general words to translate dhatu, in Pali. But then it's what is comprehensible to you. Yeah, the four elemental qualities I find more useful than elements. Elements too sound to me solid, but qualities are more fluid, flowing. You see, whatever works. Right. So the next theme of mindfulness is feelings, Vedana, and it's I think there's a little bit of a translation problem because most people associate feelings in English with emotion. Yeah, but it's not. Feelings are not emotion in Buddhism. We don't have feelings, emotional feelings. So the simplest explanation of the feelings is three feelings. So when you're trying to define feelings in Buddhism, you say just either pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Well, you get fancy about it. Just pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And you can even say there's only two, because just pleasant and unpleasant. And then if those two don't exist, you're in the middle, it must be neutral then. Either you're asleep or it's neutral. You're unconscious or it's neutral, yeah. The Buddha also, there's a whole chapter in another of the books, the Samyutta Nikaya. This is the Majjhimana. And the Samyutta Nikaya is by topic, by theme. There's a whole chapter in there on feelings. chapter 36, for those interested. And the Buddha gives different contemplations about feelings. And it's very, very fundamental to understanding the mind, I would say, because feelings are very instrumental in the arising of defilements. Basically, if there's pleasant feeling, okay, maybe here's a little test here. There's a pleasant feelings, and you get taken away by them, what state of mind arises? You read the book? No?
But that's what I have experienced.
Lust, yes. Lust, passion, desire, pleasant feeling, yeah, great stuff. Unpleasant feeling rises?
Dvesh.
What?
Aversion.
Aversion, yeah. Why is that?
Because it's not right. It's
Not pleasant, not pleasant, yeah, it's painful, it's unpleasant, that's why I don't like it. Neutral feeling is a
I
hard one.
thought that's delusion. I relate
What?
that to neutral with delusion.
Yes.
You're constantly
Yeah,
you've got a bunch of expectations which are dormant. I don't know, that's how I relate.
well, pleasant and unpleasant is reasonably noticeable, but neutral sneaks up on you. It's neither one nor the other. It's defined, neutral feeling is defined technically as neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It's neutral then. So, it's a negative in a way. pleasant and unpleasant are reasonably noticeable. But neutral, what's that? It's the middle ground. And feelings are very, very important because feelings arise automatically. There's very little self-influence in feelings in the beginning. I mean, the basic feelings. First of all, in perception, there's consciousness and there's feeling, and then there is perception, which is colored by self-interest. But the feeling just erased. It's like an instinct at the primal level. It's a rejection, or it's embracing it. It's like it's hardwired into our reptilian brain, if you like. You got that? Just a survival mechanism. If there's something threatening, you better react very quickly, or that saber-toothed tiger's already got you.
Is that
And if there's something pleasant, food, you got to get it before somebody else gets it. So it's very, very primal stuff. But then, that's at the very, very, primal level of our being, of our existence. And then usually from there it gets more complicated. The mind goes very quickly into feeling, perception. I like it, I don't like it, how can I get it? Where's the feeling? Sometimes by the time you're chasing after it, that initial feeling's already gone, and what am I doing? What am I chasing anyway? What was that? I had a little smell of something wonderful and it's gone, but I'm still chasing it.
isn't that what causes the burning, the dukkha?
Yep. Not understanding feelings. I mean, we're just under the sway of these feelings. A simile the Buddha gave was the winds, just the winds blowing. And we can't control the winds, but we're just blown around by them. Pleasant feeling arises, and we chase after what we think is the source of the pleasant feeling. Unpleasant feeling arises, we run away from the unpleasant, what we think is the cause of the unpleasant, or source of it. Where it just changes so quickly. Very, very changeable feelings. Even more changeable than the body, see. And very important in Buddhist teachings, because the Buddha had a very unique outlook on feelings. For most of the religious people in India, the pleasant feeling was to be suppressed, or tried to be. A lot of them, a whole group of them, excelled in self-mortification. Some felt that you had to burn off the pleasant feeling with suffering, you see. It was a very dangerous, pleasant feeling. But the Buddha had a different perception. There's two kinds of pleasant feeling, as is mentioned in the scripture, this particular sutta. The Buddha mentioned 6 kinds of feelings. For those who read it, remember? Yeah. Pleasant, worldly feeling.
Worldly, unworldly.
Unworldly. Pleasant, unworldly feeling. And then unpleasant, worldly, unworldly. And then neutral, worldly and unworldly. Huh? Or you could say spiritual maybe, or something.
So what's worldly and unworldly?
It literally means of the flesh, carnal, sensory, sensual,
What?
due to the senses.
Is that unworldly?
That's worldly.
Oh, what's unworldly?
That comes from higher states of mind.
Would metta be like an example of a pleasant, unworldly feeling?
Fantasy?
If you can experience it, it takes some effort, some unpleasantness maybe to develop it, But when you get another sutta to deal with the meditation, with the mindfulness of the body sutta in Majjhima Nikaya 119. They mention also these 6 meditations, but it's put in the form of developing it for samadhi, or concentration meditation. There's no mention of arising and ceasing factors. And then it goes on to, from the 6 mindfulness meditations, it goes on to the jhanas. And if you read about the jhanas, absorptions, it says that when you experience the piti sukha, the rapture and well-being that comes out of deep absorption, you should infuse the whole body with that. The whole body is buzzing with this wonderful feeling of rapture. And he uses that. That's also body meditation, but in a more positive sense. So he's using the body meditation for developing concentration exercises and experiencing the bliss of concentration. Not to undermine our attachment to the body so much as point out the positive benefits of the body too, through jhana. But this pleasant sukha, rapture that comes out of the absorptions, that would be a unworldly or spiritual pleasant feeling. So the Buddha allowed that. If you remember the story of the Buddha, he did these ascetic practices, 6 years of tortures and deprivations, freezing and baking himself in the sun and the fires and without food. But then he fainted, and he thought, this isn't the right path. So then he sat under one of the trees. It was a Bodhi tree or not yet, but in one of the trees. And he remembered a time when he was a young child, and he sat under a tree and entered into absorption. I mean, maybe today children can't do that so much with their attention deficit disorder. But in the old days, when a child was left in the countryside, they would just sit there and bliss out. Maybe. And you remember that, and then you realize that was a bliss, a very peaceful state of mind, but it was not dangerous. It wasn't really dangerous. It wasn't from a sensual realm. It was, beyond the sensory realm. It wasn't a beautiful sight, or sound, or smell, or taste, or touch. It came from a different dimension in the mind, you see. So then he realized, maybe this is the way to practice then. So then the Buddha changed his way of practice from the asceticism part. He took some food and then he tried meditation. And then his disciples left him, his 5 disciples who weren't disciples yet, they were his friends in the spiritual striving. They left him saying, he's getting slack now. He's eating. He's indulging in food. But the Buddha was just getting his strength back so he could meditate and not pass out. So then he used that state of a calm meditation, calmness of mind, and the spiritual bliss, if you like. He used that as a basis for insight meditation. That's when he became enlightened, you see. So he recognized there was 2 kinds of pleasant feeling, for example, 2 kinds of unpleasant feeling. A worldly unpleasant feeling would be, like torturing yourself, like pushing yourself too far, staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, that's even worse. Well, it depends on, your attitude, right? But then the spiritual unpleasant feeling would be if you recognize, you could use that and just reflect on, this is the weakness of the body. The body is not invincible. And the body does get cold, the body does get sick. And perhaps that can provide some insight into the fragility of the body. You get some insight into impermanence, anatta. I want to sit here all night, but the body says, tough luck. The body has its own plans. My ego wants to do it, but the body says otherwise. That's anatta. It's not myself. The body isn't yourself. It has its own particular, its own particular habits, its own weaknesses and strengths. It doesn't listen to you most of the time. Huh? So you can use that as a contemplation of impermanence, and then it would be a spiritual unpleasant feeling. And of course, the neutral worldly feeling is people just kind of zonking out, They just go numb or dull or something. See? Whereas the positive one, the spiritual one, would be equanimity. Equanimity, and people maybe think equanimity is also just chilling out, but it's not. It's a very advanced state because it's being equanimous with pleasant and unpleasant. It's tuning into feelings, but not being reacted upon by them. Very advanced state, actually. Only comes in the fourth of the Brahma Viharas. It comes in the fourth Ajahn. See? So, may take a little bit of practice. How many times do we chill out first before we'll get to it? And because this, let's say, feelings are very primal stuff, if we don't understand them, then we are pushed around by them. So there are these potentially what they call anusaya, the underlying dispositions of lust for pleasant feeling, aversion to unpleasant feeling, and ignorance of neutral feeling is in the background of them. So if you don't understand them, then it's very easy just to fall into that. And it's so fundamental to our nature that I don't want to insult people, human beings, but we are all basically hedonists. You know that? Hedonist? Even us in the monastery are hedonists. We're here for the joy of enlightenment, right? Even a masochist is a hedonist because they enjoy being a masochist. Otherwise, it wouldn't be one. And if you don't have some pleasant feeling from life, then you'd probably leave. You'd commit suicide or check out somehow, But so you need some pleasant feeling in life. We're programmed to enjoy pleasant feeling. So the Buddha recognized that, so he could build upon that. But the important thing was a spiritual pleasant feeling. The other ones they're very, 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 very uncertain. They're very unreliable. The worldly ones, due to the sense stimulations. Whereas the spiritual one has a different dimension to it. So when sometimes it also mentions that in the psychological qualities which lead to deep absorption, then happiness is one of them. There's joy, happiness, and then concentration, sometimes is mentioned. So when the body is very much well-being and lightness, and joy is a factor of enlightenment, factor of awakening, joy. When the body is very blissful, the mind is naturally calm. So it has a very, very, fundamental place to play in the Buddhist path of practice. But you have to be able to distinguish, as it is with this exercise in mindfulness, between the worldly pleasant and the unworldly pleasant. And probably you get, maybe you have some experience now after 2 weeks of meditation, of unworldly, spiritual, pleasant feeling. Unpleasant. Hopefully 2 weeks you got through the worst of the pains and...
That's just coming.
Just a slow retreat. Usually on a 10-day retreat, it's the third day. Third day blues, we say. Third day is the worst. If you get through that, then you're cruising. Not everybody. Some crash. But, so it's very, if we aren't aware of these feelings, then, especially in this context of spiritual and worldly, then we're prey to the underlying dispositions of greed, aversion, delusion, if you like. So watch out.
I have a question. So isn't greed? So greed causes emotions, is it? Is there a subtle difference? Because true feeling is not an emotion. Mm-hmm. Feeling is this greed, hatred, and delusion, which causes an emotion. don't get what you want, it's unpleasant. So therefore you have anger. So I'm just trying to find out why isn't...
You're going a little bit too far ahead. That's in the meditation on the states of mind. It's next week.
Experience.
Just stay with feelings first. Just stay with feelings. Just try and investigate pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, neutral feelings, unpleasant. You just investigate them. Then maybe you can see what sometimes plays out from it. So once you settle mindfulness in that particular theme, it's getting the facts right first. You know, what is pleasant feeling? What's the arising factor of pleasant feeling? What's the cessation factor? Where does it take you sometimes too? You know, as long as you're very well established in that awareness and mind's calm enough, you can begin to notice. But just get very clear about what these feelings are first. Not emotion. Not thinking, not emotion, just a feeling. And a feeling is not a thought. If it's, yeah, it's easier, I find, to go back to the body then. You know, if you notice a feeling, try and trace it into the body. And the body is more stable, changes less quickly. Feelings can change very quickly. You know, as soon as you notice a pleasant feeling, you think, oh, I like that. Oh, can I get that? Can I? Back to the body again. You know, is it where in the body does it express itself, or how does it express itself in the body? And try and just be with the feeling itself. Pleasant feeling is like this. And ideally, if your mind is calm enough, you can even be with unpleasant feeling without getting distracted by it, without getting, creating all kinds of reactions to it. When mindfulness is developed, it's a non-judgmental, non-reactive observing. No reaction, just observing. Supported by diligence and concentration, you know. So this is a chance for this week to study just feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Very, very important to understand them, because we have them with us all the time. Yeah, and if we don't recognize them, we're just being blown around by these winds of greed, aversion, delusion all the time. And then we wonder, how did I get out there? Where does aversion arise? You know, when you understand about the nature of these feelings, then when you, for example, if you do have aversion, just say unpleasant feeling. That's the cause of it. Forget about trying to solve your aversion. Look at where the pain is, and then you find it. You find the cause of it. If you find yourself fantasizing about pleasant things, beautiful things, pleasant feeling. Where's the pleasant feeling? Then you get to the cause of it. And when you see the cause, sometimes the whole thing just evaporates. Because you recognize, you're out in the left field somewhere. You aren't at the home plate, we say in baseball. You aren't at the real source of it. You're out somewhere far away. Feeling, back to feeling. And if you do notice, maybe your mind does get caught up with aversion or delusion or something, just say pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or neutral feeling. Just remind yourself that. In beginning, mindfulness sometimes it comes from the root word to remember. To remember. And the second, the translation of that is recollection. You recollect yourself. Back to the breathing. Back to the feeling. Back to the body. And then when you develop that more, it becomes a way of being then. And your attention, which we all have, stays with the body then. Or the breathing, or feeling. Yeah? Clear?
Is it neutral feeling happen when the pleasant finish or the unpleasant finish? Is it neutral?
Could be. Check it out. I find it easier to follow the Pali translation. Just says when there's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It's got to be neutral.
Yeah.
There's only three feelings.
So
So most of the time, neutral feeling is hard to notice because it doesn't stand out, you see.
is it not that?
But if it's not pleasant, no, that's not unpleasant, must be neutral.
I
and it's
only
like a
can
little-
observe when the unpleasant finish.
Yeah, could be, yeah. Could be, yeah. The neutral is like the fog in between, you know, it's in the hollow, see. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral's in the hollow. Fog. But if you begin to become more aware of it, more mindful of it, then it begins to, become obvious. It begins to, now you're giving attention to it. Before it didn't stand out, so you never paid attention to it. And then sometimes that neutral feeling is more like equanimity. Sometimes, Other times it's maybe the unpleasant ends because you fall asleep. Then it's not equanimity, not equanimity. It's a neutral feeling, but it's because of dullness or lack of mindfulness. So you begin to distinguish the two.
And one of the words in the Vikibari translation, abides, independent, not clinging to anything in the world, which is again and again and again throughout
Yep.
the sutra. I was wondering, what's your, how does one abide independent, not clinging to anything in the world?
Well, I would say that's a bit of an advanced state. It's more like it's a result of the practice. When you notice that, when you have the insight into feeling, for example, you're independent of them, not a slave to them anymore. And so, you don't cling to them. Most people, they still have some, clinging to pleasant feeling. They still try to get pleasant feeling no matter what they do. Even spiritual practice. I mean, I'm in it for the joy of samadhi, So I mean, that's okay in the beginning, is to recognize the value or purpose or benefit of the spiritual pleasant feeling. But if you're still seeking it, holding on to it, you're still not independent. It's not nibbana yet. Even though it's very joyful, but it's not nibbana yet. Sorry. Close, but not quite.
Actually, the sutta we are doing at night, that Aditya Pariyaya, is basically the fire sutta. Gives a bit of insight into wanting to be in this state you're speaking, because everything is burning and now you're aware. And therefore, there's no point of clinging to the world, your 5, 6 senses.
It's burning away from you, yes.
Yes.
Disenchanted with mind,
Yeah.
disenchanted with mental states.
Yeah? Already? We haven't even got to that part yet.
It's in the sutta.
That sutta is so powerful, Aditya Pariyaya. Just chanting.
And then after that sutta, I think 1,000 people were enlightened.
Yeah, I was like,
Mahathir ascetics,
reading it was like so.
1,001.
I haven't,
Not yet, close.
but it's so powerful to practice.
Luangpo, the second part of the question is going to be with the unworldly pleasant feelings. Are these unworldly pleasant feelings, they're still conditioned, are they? So they're anicca, dukkha, anatta.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the dukkha in the unworldly pleasant feelings? Dukkha and pity.
Well, I could have mentioned that too. That the Buddha had a special view of pleasant feeling, spiritual pleasant feeling, but also, of course, he also recognized the other side of it, the spiritual unpleasant feeling, dukkha vedana, also plays a very significant part in Buddhism, right? The Four Noble Truths. But the worldly dukkha vedana is really just a symptom of something much deeper. There's the word dukkha it can be used as a feeling, dukkha vedana, the pain, if you like, discomfort. But I would translate it more like it's imperfect. Dukkha is a symbol of imperfection, unsatisfactoriness, universal imperfection. Human beings are imperfect. We think we're perfect. I am, invincible and inviolate, but no, you're imperfect.
No?
You're not God. No.
There's no I.
You're not even Ozymandias. Ozymandias? Anyway, that's John Keats, I think.
Nothing new underneath the sun. Ozymandias.
Yeah.
Nothing new
Yeah. Anyway, we're not so great as we think we are. See? So we're imperfect. But practically speaking, we're aware of the dukkha vedana. But that's only a symptom of some bigger thing. The reason that the body is suffering because you expect it to be perfect. The wrong idea. If you can really receive it just as it is, the body is imperfect. Yeah, okay, breaks down, hurts. That's the way it is. So then you don't have you still have physical pain if you like, but you don't have the pain, the mental pain of being disillusioned or distraught or frustrated or whatever, resentful for it. Just the way the body is. This is the way the body is. You have to listen to it. You live with it your whole life. Might as well make friends with it, rather than order it around and boss it around.
One of the reflections I really like and it came from just noticing positive and negative and neutral feeling in the body was just the mosquito bites you. That's just the feeling of a mosquito having a nice meal.
Yeah.
It's not.
And you could even turn around and say, "Oh, I must be really juicy. The mosquitoes are eating me, so I must be really tasty." And I'm giving that mosquito life.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Dana.
Compassion for it. Yeah. But we usually think it's biting me, see, and it shouldn't bite me because I'm invincible.
Or it's distracting you from a meditation.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So for the next class, we continue with the reading, continue on to the next theme, states of mind. It's not getting too heady, is it? Bad joke. We're moving on now from one body to from 6 feelings to now 16 states of mind. Can you handle that? Of course, your mind is getting quieter now with 3 weeks of meditation, so you can handle 16 states of mind, right?
We'll break
Maybe.
it. 2 lessons.
You got a whole week yet.
2 weeks for the 16.
Oh. We'll see how far I get. So we'll continue with the Satipathhana Sutta next week. There's actually a lot of material in there, I realize, because especially when we come to the next one, the Dhammas, there's 5 major themes there.
Your favorite.
Yeah, hindrances, yeah. I should have done that earlier. Maybe I should have done that earlier. The hindrances.
There's a winter retreat at Abagiri and they did the whole 3 months on just the last 2 sections.
Oh, yeah. Okay, continue. Tea time, huh?
No,
It's only 4 o'clock.